Linda Thompson is more elegant than most models, prettier than most movie stars. She has, perhaps, more clothes than Jackie Onassis and certainly just as many jewels. She is not made any uglier by the fact that she has the cutest southern accent this side of Gone with the Wind. Since his separation from Priscilla in 1972, and depending on Presley's moods, she has, on and off, been Presley's live-in girlfriend. In February 1974, Presley had just finished another standing room only performance at the Las Vegas Hilton. Presley, Sonny and Linda had repaired to the 30th floor Imperial Suite, which had become the Presley home while he was in Las Vegas. At a particular moment on this given night, the very elegant Linda Thompson was sitting in the well-appointed and luxurious bathroom of the Imperial Suite. Whatever might have been going through her mind at the time, her reverie was rudely interrupted. Suddenly she was shocked by a resounding blast. At the same time, a tiny rip appeared in the toilet paper on her right side. Almost simultaneously, the wall mirror on the closet door splintered into shards of glass. Linda arranged her clothing and dashed into the main room. Her pretty face was ashen. "What was that?" she yelled. The honey in her lilting South her accent was decidedly absent. What in God's name was that? Presley and Sonny had now been joined by Red West. Sonny and Red were shaken. The only person who appeared to be calm was Elvis. He was sprawled on a sofa, his head propped up by some pillows. In his right hand was the familiar outline of his favorite revolver, a .22 caliber Savage. The barrel was still smoking. "Hey, now, hon. Just don't get excited." Presley had just been doing a little target practice. Sonny remembers the incident, one of many when Presley surrendered to the urge of blindly popping off one of his arsenal of many guns. Elvis is never without a gun, Sonny recalls. Mostly he carries 2 or even 3 on him. Even when he is on stage, he carries a tiny 4-shot Derringer in the top of his boot. He always rationalizes that he needs guns for protection against nuts. Well, I got to admit, there are plenty of nutcases around, but he has literally dozens of guns. Over the years he has bought hundreds. I mean hundreds. He doesn't need that many guns to protect himself. Now, I carry a gun, and I have a great deal of respect for what a gun can do. I take as much care when I'm carrying that gun as when I drive down the Hollywood freeway, but Elvis is so damned careless with them, it's scary. I wouldn't be the slightest bit surprised if one day I pick up a newspaper and see that Elvis has accidentally shot someone. I think he was trying to hit a light holder on the opposite wall, Sonny says of that night. Well, he's a lousy shot and he missed. The damn bullet went straight through the wall and missed Linda by inches. If she had been standing up next to the toilet paper holder, it would have gone right through her leg. If it had changed course or bounced off something, it could have killed her. Man, that particular night, Presley pretended that everybody was making a fuss. 99. About nothing. But Sonny feels that inwardly Presley must have been shaken. Presley's shooting urges can come anytime, anywhere. His passion for guns, coupled with the painful boredom of virtual imprisonment, makes him like a mischievous little child with a toy. But the toys are real guns, carrying real bullets. One night in this same period, Presley and Red West were sitting in the dining room of the Imperial Suite. Red recalls, over the table there is this great-looking chandelier with about 15 or 20 lights in it. It's very fancy. Anyway, Elvis is sitting back with his feet up on the table, and it looked like something out of a Robert Mitchum movie. He pulls at this gun. It just might have been a .22 Savage, if I remember rightly. Anyway, he just starts casually blasting away at these light bulbs. I don't know how many times he reloaded the damned thing, but he kept on reloading until he blew out every one of the light bulbs. There was plaster falling down from the ceiling like crazy, and there were holes in the ceiling everywhere. The management of the Hilton Hotel kept their complaints to themselves, but they did present him with a stiff bill. It is difficult to say what makes a man obsessive about guns. Presley has not the slightest respect for them, although he does know the respect they can produce. Red explains. Now, I wasn't there when this happened, nor was Sonny, so we can only go on what he told us, but it appears it was in the early days when I was away in the Marines. Elvis was in a bar, or maybe it was a coffee shop or a restaurant on Lamar Avenue, back in Memphis. The way he tells it, there was a sailor in there giving him a hard time about his clothes and long hair. Elvis takes this for a while, although he is burning inside. Anyway, after a bit he reaches into his pocket and takes out not a real gun. I think it was only a starting pistol. He walks up to this sailor, jams the starting pistol right under his chin and says, "Now this is according to Elvis. Listen, motherfucker, I want you to stand to attention and call me sir." The sailor is shitting himself and he stands to attention. Then Elvis says to him, "Now, I'm walking outside for some fresh air for a few seconds, and when I come back I still want to see you standing to attention." Elvis says he walked outside and got into his car. He says he drove around the block, and when he passed that place again he could see the sailor still standing stiff to attention. Elvis said that stuck in his mind, and he thought the gun was a hell of a equalizer when it came to bullies. On an average day, Presley will get up at 4 or even 5 in the afternoon. Soon after he gets up, depending on his moods, he orders a giant breakfast. Often, as he eats, he has one of his many guns at his side. While eating breakfast he always turns on the television set. For the sake of the television set and their nerves, the boys always pray there is nothing on that he doesn't like. For instance, says Red, Elvis doesn't like too many other singers, at least living ones. He did admire Bobby Darin very much, but he has passed away. But generally Elvis will always have something critical to say about another singer. He doesn't like competition. Worst of all, he really hates Robert Goulet for some reason. I don't even remember whether he had ever met him or not, or whether he had seen him perform live. Anyway, one afternoon in 1974, he is eating breakfast and on comes Robert Goulet on the big screen television set. Very slowly, Elvis finishes what he has in his mouth, puts down his knife and fork, picks up this big mother of a .22 and boom blasts old Robert clean off the screen and the television set to pieces. He then puts down the .22, picks up his knife and fork and says, "That will be enough of that shit," and then he goes on eating. Talking about it now, around normal people, I realize how weird that kind of stuff was. But at the time, I must admit, we all indulged him. Whenever he did something like that, we all laughed like crazy and made a big joke of it. I suppose when we did that it just encouraged him. But if that bullet had bounced off that television set and hit somebody, it wouldn't have been so funny. In fact, one night the bullet from a Presley gun did glance off a television set and it did hit somebody. It was in a 2-bedroom suite at the Holiday Inn, or it might have been the Ramada Inn. I don't know. We hit so many places, but I remember it was just off the freeway in Asheville, North Carolina, and we were getting ready for the show. In the room was Presley's father, Vernon Presley, and Dr. George Nicopolis, a Memphis doctor of Greek extraction who would often travel with the entourage to look after Presley. Dr. Nick, as he is called, is a short, good-looking man with a shock of white hair and a penchant for good rings, bracelets and watches, a preference that Presley has acknowledged with many expensive gifts. Dr. Nick has got Presley through some very bad times in his life, both physically and emotionally. He does his best, without always succeeding, to discourage Presley from an insane diet that would kill a hog, and exudes a distinctly paternal interest in the superstar. Dr. Nick's son, Dean, is often a member of the Presley entourage, and he is as close to family as it is possible to be without being a blood relative. I can't remember exactly what brought it on, says Sonny, but just before the show, Elvis just whipped out a revolver that was tucked in his belt and blew out a damn television set in the main room. Now this time the bullet, I guess it was a .22, whizzed around in the TV set inside, bounced off and came out again. It whistled past Vernon's head and hit Dr. Nick right under the heart. Thank God that by the time the thing reached Dr. Nick it was completely spent, and it just bounced off his suit and plopped on the floor. Dave Hebler was on the balcony of the suite when he heard the gun go off, and he came racing in. By that time Sonny had very quickly dragged the dead television set from the room and replaced it with a live one from the bedroom. Sonny remembers that there were security guards for the show waiting outside. They were banging on the door wanting to know what was going on. Another member of the Presley bodyguard team, a man named Dick Robb, a former U.S. Air Force fighter pilot and ex-Palm Springs policeman who had joined Presley on the permanent staff of the Memphis Mafia, had a little heart talk with the other security guards and smoothed it over. He just told them some kind of a story, but they went away satisfied, says Sonny. It's not every day you hear a gun go off when you're supposed to be there protecting the ass of a superstar. Later on Elvis gave the chief of security a gold watch. Predictably, the public and the ever-present press had no idea about the flamboyant show of gunplay. This was the closest the otherwise healthy Dr. Nick ever came to a heart attack. Honestly, Red adds, I can't tell you how many television sets went to their death at the hands of Elvis and his shooting. He would shoot out television sets in hotel rooms and in any one of the houses he has. He shot out a great big one at Graceland, in Memphis, the one he had in his bedroom. He shot him out in his place in Palm Springs. Nobody would say a word to him about it, although there was one time he was asked to explain his actions. The reprimand came from his cute little daughter Lisa Marie, then 7. After seeing one of these shattered sets, she said, Daddy, why did you shoot the TV? He smiled sort of sheepishly and said, Aw, honey, there was something on it that Daddy didn't like. Presley would regularly go on shopping sprees in sporting goods stores for guns. He bought them as he bought his cars, by the load. In 1970, on one particular Beverly Hills spree, for which Sonny still has the shopping list, Presley had a real ball giving Kerr's Sporting Goods the best business they had ever had. In just 1 month he bought 32 handguns, 1 shotgun and a rifle. The arsenal included such goodies as a gold Inlaid .357 Colt Python revolver, which cost $1,950, and a .44 Ruger Blackhawk revolver, also gold-plated, costing $1,850. The rest ranged in price from over $1,000 down to $66 for a Derringer. The total cost of that shopping spree was $19,792. That four-shot Derringer that he carries in his boot on stage, well, one night it was irritating the side of his ankle, says Red West. Elvis just stops between numbers and hoists it out in full view of everybody. There were cops all around. If they didn't see it or the audience didn't see it, then they were blind. He put it on the stage right next to Charlie Hodge. Charlie just swept it up and put it in his pocket. One night on tour when he was wearing that damn big Magnum of his, we had flown in one of his private planes to Dallas, I think. Anyway, Elvis had slept all the way and was in his pajamas. He will often sleep on the plane in his pajamas and go straight to a hotel and back to bed again. But he was wearing this Magnum in the top of his pajamas. He had a coat over his pajamas, but the pajama top just wasn't strong enough to hold this great big Magnum. It just kept falling out. Elvis was out of it on sleeping pills and he didn't seem to know what was happening. We get off the plane at the airport and as he is walking down the steps from the plane, the Magnum falls out in front of cops that are everywhere and a big crowd waiting for him. It was night and raining a little, and here am I with this flashlight looking for a damned Magnum. I finally found it and Elvis just grabbed it for me like he had dropped a dime. Not a care in the world. I'll never know how none of this came out in the press because it was going on all the time. There are supposed to be some pretty sharp newspapermen around, but they never picked up on any of this, and it wasn't hard to find out because he seems so damned open about it. Elvis's guns, at least the ones he carries, are always loaded but not fully. The first chamber is always empty. Sonny relates. It is a habit he got from me. I had a friend who dropped his gun. It landed on the hammer. Anyway, it fired and hit him right through the heart, killing him instantly. Now after that happened, I always made sure that when I was going armed on a security job with Elvis that I always left the first chamber empty for two reasons. First, I don't want the same thing to happen to me. And second, if I am wrestling with some nutcase during a performance and my gun falls out, it might go off and hit someone in the audience, which would be a tragedy. Presley might do it for those reasons, too. But according to Sonny, he has a third reason. Elvis knows what a real bad temper he has, says Sonny. When he flashes, anything can happen. If he pulls the trigger in a rage, it will come up blank and give him just enough time to realize what on earth he is doing. I remember one time at the Memphian Theater in Memphis. That's the movie house that Elvis often takes over for himself and the boys to watch his favorite films. There was a crowd that night. Anyway, he went to the men's room. He seemed to be there a bit too long. Anyway, one of the guys, he wasn't a regular member of the crowd, just a friend. Anyway, he started to bang on the door and sort of yell in a loud but joking way. I can't remember who it was, but I guess he was someone who wasn't close enough to Elvis to start getting too familiar. Anyway, Elvis yells back, "Okay, man, okay." But this guy just kept banging on the door, which was a damn fool way to act as he was to learn pretty soon. Apparently Elvis flashed. God damn it, he yelled as he charged out the door. Then he screamed, "Who do you think you are, you motherfucker?" With that he whipped out his gun, pointed it right at the guy and pulled the trigger. Jesus, thank God, he didn't have a bullet in that chamber. Otherwise, he would have blown the man's head clean off his shoulders. When the mood grabbed Elvis in any one of his many mansions, the place would sound like a shooting gallery. He has been known to pick up a gun or a rifle and just start blasting away for the sheer hell of it. Even when he was not in a state of excitement from his self-prescribed medication, he would spend hours on all sorts of target practice. An especially favorite pastime was to fill his pool up with balloons or light bulbs and blast away until the pool was a graveyard of burst rubber or broken glass. That in itself probably could be put down to boredom and, perhaps, was only marginally dangerous. But, says Red, what was really wild was when he would flash his guns on a public street. Red and Sonny West and Dave Hebler have been with Presley on literally dozens of occasions when the star has been enraged simply by another car passing him. Many times he has every reason to get angry. Carloads of wise guys noticing Presley in a car would often burn past him yelling insults and making obscene gestures at him. But other times there have been drivers who, not noticing Presley at all, have simply passed him on the highway. When this happens, there stirs in Presley the boyish ambition to be a cop. He will chase after the driver and yell at him to pull over, show one of his many police badges that he collects, like some little boys collect marbles, and give the errant driver a lecture. He believes he is a law unto himself, says Dave Hebler. You have to put it into perspective. However, in the circle of entertainment, he had every right to be that law. He is pampered. He is an industry, making a lot of money for a lot of people. That can be, to some degree, understood, but he loses sight of reality, because when he gets out in the real world, your world, My world, he can't differentiate between the two. He still believes he is in charge. He is like isolated royalty, like the Emperor of Japan or the Queen of England. Despite his humble beginnings, he hasn't had contact with the outside world for many years. It's a genuine case of being a Howard Hughes. Elvis wouldn't know how much a slice of pizza cost in downtown LA. He wouldn't know how much the average guy pays for a shirt. He is removed from all that. Now, when somebody passes him in a car going 70 miles per hour, he says, "Who does he think he is?" Doing that. He can't speed, even though Elvis speeds like a madman all the time. It's as if someone was trying to usurp his special privileges. I promise you, the man is a very interesting study. He has absolutely no self-control, hence the gun firing stuff. Like a little boy who picks up a rock and throws it through a window for no real reason apart from the fact it was there. Elvis will pick up a gun and blast with it away. I can't honestly believe he always plays with guns because he is sinister. Overall, I believe he is like an uncontrollable, mischievous boy. Dave remembers a perfect example. He was driving Presley along Elvis Presley Boulevard outside his Graceland mansion in Memphis. It was the summer of 1974, on a pleasant, warm evening just before sundown. Dave was just pulling into the entrance of Graceland. He slowed down as he came to the gate, because the entrance was jammed with the normal clutch of fans who keep a 24-hour vigil. Just then, says Dave, I noticed a car parked against the wall of Graceland. On top of it is a beer can. Now, as soon as I saw that beer can, I instinctively thought, oh, target practice for Elvis. Then figured, no way, he wouldn't do that in front of these people outside their damn gate. The hell he didn't. He whipped out a gun, leaned out and, blam, tried to knock the can off the roof. He missed by a country mile. He cursed. I nearly died. What if someone tells a reporter about the incident? Well, it didn't seem to worry anybody except me. Man, that crazy gun stuff drove me up the wall. I'm nervous around anyone who doesn't handle a gun with the same care as you would handle a rattler. I lost my eye as a kid because some crazy bastard got careless with an air rifle. After that beer can incident, Elvis just laughed, and he put the gun back in his belt and we drove on through. In Elvis's houses, wherever he is staying, you just might flop down on a sofa and suddenly you're sitting on a stray gun. Sonny did that once, and this gun was jammed upwards between two cushions. He sat right on the point of the barrel, right up his ass. Man, that's sheer insane carelessness. There are kids sometimes roaming around those places of his. It must be said that Presley's guns are quite legal, and they are all licensed. He goes to great pains to befriend law enforcement agencies throughout the country. It isn't that he wants them on his side to cover anything up. It's just that, according to the West Boys and Dave Hebler, he is impressed with the macho behind being a cop. He is obsessed with the authority that a police uniform or police badge gives. He will go to extraordinary lengths to get those badges of authority. He has long been issued a legitimate sheriff's badge from Shelby County, Memphis. In fact, all of his bodyguards, including Red, Sonny and Dave, possess legitimate Shelby County sheriff's badges. Even his doctor, George Nicopolis, had one. Presley arranges for these badges through his contacts in the sheriff's department. These are not honorary badges. They are legitimate badges that allow the holder to carry a gun. Holders of these badges are bonded and insured like a regular sheriff's deputy. I guess he has troopers, sheriffs and police badges from half the states in the union, says Sonny. If a local police organization offers him an honorary badge, he loses interest. If he can't get the real thing, he doesn't want it at all, and he ignores anyone who offers him anything less than the real thing. Presley is a close friend of former Sheriff Bill Morris of Shelby County, a hard-working cop who can't be blamed if he is flattered by being sought out as a friend by Presley. Presley bought Morris a glistening new Mercedes, but, in fairness to the sheriff, it was a spontaneous gift with no strings. Sonny relates, the sheriff was knocked out by the gift. He is a very good man, very honest, very tough, but like everyone, he is human, too. And he is impressed by Elvis, like we all were. Sonny recalls that in the beginning of 1971, Sheriff Morris arranged for Presley and Sonny to go to the National Sheriff's Conference building in Washington. Elvis was very impressed by this, says Sonny, him rubbing shoulders with the top cops in the country. He got off on that. Anyway, we get to Washington and we were very well looked after by the feds, who were a great bunch of guys. They really gave us the red carpet treatment. They took us into the federal building and showed us the files and exhibits of all the biggest crimes in history. It was like going through a museum, and both he and I were very interested in it. Kidnapping, murder, assassinations, there were all sorts of exhibits and files. It was fascinating. Now before we went into the federal building, the feds who were showing us around assumed we were carrying arms, as is the rule. They very nicely asked us to unload. I took off my shoulder holster and locked it in the trunk of the car. I just guessed Elvis wasn't carrying because he didn't make a move. I should have known better. Anyway, we're going through these exhibits and things and Elvis wants to go to the men's room. The Fed men came into the men's room with us. As is customary, Elvis always goes into a booth. He will never stand up alongside you in the man's room when you're taking a leak. He will always go into the booth. So when he comes out of the booth, there is me and the two Fed guys waiting for him. Elvis leans over to fix his shoe or something, and as he does, a .25 automatic tumbles out and clatters on the tile floor. God, my heart stopped. Here were these FBI guys, nice enough to take us around and take time off. They politely tell us to take off our guns because there are rules in the federal building about concealed weapons. Rules which I fully understand and fully respect. Well, Elvis looks down at this gun on the floor, picks it up calmly and puts it in his belt. He just smiles boyishly at the Feds, and the Feds sort of smile back. He just charmed them off a tree and they didn't say a word. The old Elvis, when he turned on the charm, he could con anyone.